Welcome to the Balancing Ambitions podcast. I'm your host, Kim Menapace. You are not alone in your pursuit to balance family life, work, side hustles, and taking care of yourself. Balance is not easy to achieve by any means, but we can all work to get better at it together by sharing our stories, tips, and wisdom. Let's dive into this week's episode. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Balancing Ambitions podcast. This week's episode is going to be a solo episode with me. I keep it a little bit shorter than my typical interview style episodes. And I wanted to take this time to reflect on 5 things I've learned in 2024 that I want to share with you. I think that I've had a lot of mentorships that my husband and I have invested in, a lot of change, both, I say positive and negative, but I'd say actually, as I look at my list of things I want to talk about today, I'd say it's all positive. I think there's always challenges and things that come up, but those are all opportunities to get better in some way, shape, or form. So I do look at this with a very positive lens with everything and the glass half full. So we'll dive in now. The first big learning I had was that quantum leaps are made in the letting go. That's what one of my mentors said. And back in, I think it was February or March that I heard that. And it took me a while to understand that and also take some big steps in action against that learning. And this could be for habits, activities, relationships that aren't serving you. And that I think that there was a flavor of a bit of all of those in my journey on letting go of things that weren't serving me well anymore, or maybe weren't serving me ever, but I just didn't take the time to reflect and make that come to that conclusion to let that thing go. One big thing that Dave and I let go this year was our second short-term rental or second Airbnb that we had in Maine. We'd owned this house for a little over 2 years, and over the summer, we were at this crossroads where we could do a cost segregation study, basically, a tax benefit that I won't go into right now, or we were thinking of selling it, and it didn't make sense to do that cost segregation study if we were gonna sell it, and so we were at a crossroads and had a good conversation about the pros and cons of keeping this house, investing in it, having to upscale the design to be more competitive and all those things. And we realized that we wanted to let this house go this year. We had gotten some great equity out of that house. We bought it in March of 2022, and we really wanted to upgrade our primary home. And this was a chess piece in that larger game of life that we just felt it was time to play that piece. And it worked out really well. We sold it. We floated it off market for a while, and then the day we're gonna list it on the MLS, it actually got a really great competitive offer, and we took it, and it was a very smooth sale. So I look at that as a big learning. I think that the main market and the ski Airbnbs are amazing. There are also a lot of challenges and learnings we had there. So that market is not for the faint of heart when you're building beautiful homes in the middle of the woods and have private wells and bears and snow removal and all those fun things. It's made us really great at management, and we try to help all of our clients both with consulting and with actually managing their Airbnb for them with all of those learnings, and we continue to get better with those. But that was a big thing we let go, that it was just the right time and place, and as things unfolded the next several months, it seemed like absolutely the right call. And I think that all the steps for selling that house just unfolded really beautifully, which just told me that it was the right time to sell. The universe was sending me some signs for that one. The second big learning I had this year was about really being intentional about health and activity. I move a lot, and I just got the Oura ring about a month ago. And so it tells me that I get a lot of steps. I raise my heart rate a lot, chasing kids and walking upstairs at my office. So I was getting activity, but I wasn't getting any strength or flexibility and mobility work in, because that has to be intentional. I have to go lift weights and not just lift my kids up to put them in their cribs or in the car seat. I had to go either downstairs in my basement and use all the weights I have down there, or get myself to the gym and get a great habit built there for strength training and also flexibility. I started this year out with a goal of 10 minutes of yoga every single day using the Peloton app, and I kept it up for 9 months. I talked about this on another episode, but what happened, the long and short of it was, I had been up late working on house projects. It was 11:50 or 11:55 p.m. at night, and I realized I hadn't done my yoga, and I was actually having trouble winding my body down to actually go to sleep. So I had to make a decision at that crossroads. Do I let myself continue to go back to sleep and just let this goal go that helped get me into great habits and great flexibility that I'm continuing to build on? Or do I keep up that goal just for the, just getting that acknowledgement from people, whether it's friends or people who follow me on social media. So I decided to let that go and swallow my pride and make the best decision for me at that moment, lying in bed at 11:50 at night and say, you know what, I've just got to let this go. It served its purpose to get me moving and active and working on flexibility, something that doesn't come naturally to me. So that was a great big milestone for me this year, was actually being intentional with my active health, with strength training and flexibility, because that was a huge part of my identity before kids. In the last few years, it's been hard to reintegrate that into my schedule and into my life. But I think I've done a really good job with that. And I've had to do trial and error and do different things, week to week, month to month, to keep it up as I've tried to find what works best for me and my family. So that was a big win this year. The third one is rest. And I think that this is the yin and yang to that activity. I am so go, 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 especially on the weekends, that I am just toast and I crash right at night. And I am realizing that I need to be very cognizant of my energy and find those moments to rest throughout the day. So I'm not so up here with fight or flight and then crash and burn at night, but also with sleep. And I was sacrificing sleep as I was building that strength training habit. And so you're robbing Peter to pay Paul in a sense there. And so I had to take a look in the mirror and say, is this still serving me now? It helped get me to doing strength training consistently, getting up at 4 a.m. and going to the gym 4 days a week. But it was no longer serving me in this rest capacity and in this other very important piece of health. So I've actually started tracking my sleep, and the Oura ring is amazing, where it has your zone, how much time you're spending in restored states versus more stressed states of your heart rate. So I'm trying to also be mindful of this throughout the day, not just tracking my sleep and how much deep sleep am I getting, REM sleep am I getting, total time, all that. That's been amazing. I've been very intentional about that for the last couple months. The fourth learning this year was faith, and having faith that things will work out. Saying yes, yes to what you want, even if it might seem crazy or far-fetched or stretch you financially. Saying yes to opportunities, yes to things you want to do, like this podcast. I had the idea to do this almost a year ago, and it took me so long to get off the ground doing it. I had to actually, going back to number one, let some things go to make space, both energetically, figuratively, in my schedule, in order to do things like this. So I think that I am just naturally wired to have that fear and worry and be pragmatic and realistic and logical. And so stretching that to say, what if things do work out? What if everything goes well? What if there is minimal challenges? Or what if you actually end up really liking doing X, Y, and Z? And just trying to calm down that worry gene I have and lean into that faith, because fear is thinking things will not work out. Faith is thinking things will work out. And you can't be on both ends of the spectrum. So if you lean into that faith and just always trying to not trying, having that positive lens, it's amazing how it'll come back to you and serve you that way. But if you think negatively of outcomes in the world and how things are going to play out, that just comes back to you. And so it seems so logical. And I've seen it in moments and pieces throughout our life. Like when we launched our first Airbnb over 5 years ago, people just recommend you have X amount of dollars in savings just in case you have a slow month or to cover bills for 6 months, this and that. If we waited to buy a house and launch, I feel like we'd still be waiting and not buying. So we took a leap of faith, being able to buy that house and try to market it as best we could going into the high season. And we were able to cover all our expenses in the high season and start building that savings. So if I had fear that we didn't have that savings built up, that we were not going to book that summer, that we were going to be short on cash and have to invest personally in that, then that's probably how it would have worked out. But I had this knowing in my gut that everything was going to be fine and work out. And that's exactly how that summer played out. We performed as good, if not better, than the old owners. And so I was just relieved and felt that calm, even going into that summer. I felt really confident going into that summer that everything was going to work out and that we were going to be fine, even though we didn't check all the boxes on all of those safety mechanisms that people recommend when you go into a specific type of investment. All right, the fifth and final takeaway and reflection of this year was connection. And I think that I am not shy to connect with people who have offered, and even who haven't offered, to help talk through a business goal, a personal goal, parenting advice. And some of my biggest moments this year where I had pivotal decisions to make on all facets of life, I found that having these key, beautiful conversations with people who helped nudge me, not influence me or push me one way or another, but ask me really thoughtful questions or even just share their personal experience. And then I can take that and apply my personal experience and decide what's best for me and my family. Is it this direction or that direction? So I think that that's a big takeaway for me is just tapping into those connections and building those connections if they aren't there to date. I think that one of the biggest pet peeves is when I offer people connection or advice, or someone says, "Hey, I'm launching an Airbnb. I'll connect with you in a few weeks after I close." Or, I take an Uber with someone who's looking to get their real estate license, and I explain what my husband does and what we've done in a few years, and give my card to them, and we never hear from them. That happens probably 9 times out of 10, and I just can't understand it because I'm the opposite. I'm probably more trigger happy on taking people up on that advice, that connection, that conversation, that phone call that they offer. And people seem willing and excited to help. As someone who has learned a lot in, my lifetime, but also especially the last 5 years of real estate investing, entrepreneurship, and parenting, I love helping people with those things who might be a step or 20 behind me, and also people ahead of me. I think that I've learned a lot from people, a life phase where kids are 5 years older, 10 years older, 20 years older. I've learned so much from those people too. And I crave more of that. And hearing things like, one of our friends in our mentorship, his kids are college age, and he said, "Listen, you're never going to get to my age and say, I wish I spent less time with my kids. You're gonna say, "I wish I worked less." So just keep that in mind when your kids are 3 and 5, because now my kids are 23 and 25, and things like that, I just remember so succinctly like they were yesterday. And I think that I love these connections. I love the network we've built over the last few years, and I offer that to other people. And that's a big reason I launched this podcast, was for that connection, was for that knowledge sharing, was for that, not that I have everything figured out, but I'm happy to share where I've navigated my journey through all of these different things, and where I've maybe had missteps and where I've had big breakthroughs and opportunities that have worked out, and sharing that with you all. So thank you for joining me today for my reflections of 2024 as we're in the final month of the year. And I'm excited to have some more guests on in the next few weeks. Thank you for all your support to date. And please remember to leave a review so others can find this podcast and benefit from it. Thank you and have a beautiful day. As always, if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review, because when you leave a review or share an episode, you make it easier for someone else to find us and benefit from these stories and tips we share. There is a link to everything we talked about in the show notes. Thank you all for listening to the Balancing Ambitions podcast, and have a beautiful day.